corn. So right now we're in northern Saskatchewan and we were just harvesting some grain corn. Maybe let's just talk a little bit about, is there opportunity here for more acres to go into grain corn?
Definitely a lot of opportunity for grain corn in Saskatchewan. Northern Saskatchewan, we're trying to work out some details on how to grow it here and be successful, but there's definitely a lot of opportunity. A lot of research is going into producing early season hybrids that'll work here in northern Saskatchewan.
Okay, so if I'm considering growing grain corn next year, what are some varietal options for me?
If you get down to trying to grow grain corn in northern Saskatchewan, the options are fairly limited. You know, we've got a couple early season products at Pioneer that will work, and we've been pretty successful in the last few years. When it comes to growing for grain, it comes down to maturity. So you're going to try and get the earliest product you can. That you know, it comes down to that, but you also have to, you know, make sure you do everything else right throughout the season to get it to be able to harvest it in the fall. So we've got a couple products, 39F44 that we have is a 2000 corn heat unit product, and P7213R, which is a 2050 corn heat unit product that both can make grain. They're two different styles of corn. One's a flint and one's a dent corn. So if for grain, I recommend the dent corn and P7213R.
Do they look much different?
I just happen to have a couple ears in my pocket here. So you can see the difference between the two. This is the 39F44, it's a flint, and it looks more like a popcorn style of corn. And then you can see here, this is the P7213R, which is a dent style. So basically when they dry down, they make a dent, and that's the difference between them. This one is a little bit earlier to maturity. This one dries down a little quicker. So that's kind of the difference between the two. The P7213R has probably got a higher yield potential, which is why if we're going for grain, I'd recommend, you know, always going for yield. Going for yield is what I like to see. So.
And the other might be an okay silage option.
Yeah, for silage, definitely. Most of the guys that are trying for silage, you know, a lot of guys are dairy guys, and quality is important. So 39F44 is a great silage product because you're going to reach that maturity and you're able to get it off before the fall frost. So you're pretty much going to be guaranteed good quality silage, and that's the most important when you're talking about dairy. For the beef guys, it's a little less critical. Quality's maybe not as important. They want volume, they want tonnage, and you know, we can definitely put. There's other products available that will yield more, I guess, in tonnage, but a little more flexibility if you're not worried as much about the quality. So
what kind of, if I'm putting corn into my rotation, what should I consider in what is following?
When it comes to corn, I like to see it going on to a cereal stubble. The reason being is volunteers in Western Canada. Canola is a big crop, and we know canola can volunteer for multiple years, and it can be a bit of an issue if you get Roundup Ready canola in your Roundup Ready corn. There is limited options, but there are some options they're limited. So I like to see it following a cereal. Plus, canola can cause issues with you know, phosphate availability to the corn as well, so we don't like to see it following canola. I'd recommend putting it after a cereal.
What would you see in terms of that problem with phosphate availability?
Generally, we'll see purpling of corn. When the corn comes out of the ground, it'll emerge, and you'll see the corn leaves will turn purple, and usually it grows out of it, but in this situation it can set the corn back a little bit, and in northern Saskatchewan you need everything to go right in order to get there for grain, so you ideally you don't want to put it on canola stubble. The biggest issue, though, or one of the biggest issues, is volunteer management of canola, and it can be a real issue and yield robber in your corn. So,
when should we be seeding corn? Sorry.
Ideally, you want to get it in as early as possible, but the ground has to be prepared. Corn needs warm ground, so I'd say you want to be at least 10 degrees Celsius or higher for corn. If it's cooler than that, you could run into trouble. The biggest thing is to make sure the ground is prepared well. Usually you work the ground, blacken it up a little bit so that it warms up. And then the corn has a better chance in the spring to emerge evenly and get off to a good start.
And then for seeding rates, what kind of population standards are goal?
Population can vary depending on what your use is. I generally recommend 26,000 to 30,000 plants per acre as a starting point, depending on what your end goal is. If you're going for silage or something like that, you can bump your rates up a little bit. For grain, I'm kind of trying to target an end plant in the between 26 and 30,000. 28's a great stand. So that would give you a good opportunity to have a high yield as well as finish at the end in the fall.
And then in terms of fertility?
Fertility, corn's a high user of fertility, so for northern Saskatchewan here, what we do is I generally recommend treating it like canola plus a little bit more. If you add 10 to 15% on top of that, and then see how it goes. You might want to top dress a little bit more fertility as the season progresses, but generally nitrogen is a key. Phosphorus, sulfur, it's very similar to canola in fertility requirements. So most of our guys are really familiar with canola, so that's where I point them. Take your canola blend, maybe bump it up a little bit and start there. So.
And then for harvest management, we were combining today, but it's raining a little bit, and it's probably a little bit too much moisture in there. What's your goal for that?
Yeah, to get dry corn is 15% moisture. So most corn is not harvested at 15% moisture. Corn's generally harvested closer in between 25 and 30% moisture is a good starting point. And but when you're harvesting corn, you're likely going to have to dry it. If the corn gets too dry, you can have yield losses due to ear drop and things like that. So what you usually take it off a little bit wetter and then dry it down. And that's one of the things we're going to have to figure out here, because not a lot of guys are drying their grains yet here. So we need to be set up for that, or have a plan in place if we're going to take off corn that's a little moist, too moist for storage. So.
And then finally, for trash management, what are your recommendations there? Do people have a problem with the trash?
Generally, you see the corn header here that they were combining with today. It strips off the ear and leaves a lot of stubble. Generally, guys will either harrow it or disc it or some version of that to manage stubble. Or the other option is guys with cattle will run their cattle on it. But there's not a lot of food value left in the plant material there. Most of the food value is left is gone in the grain. So, but generally, for next year, you got to manage it in some capacity. And the discs and the harrows are kind of fairly typical of what you see here so far.
Is acreage going up in Saskatchewan?
Definitely, there's a lot of interest. I mean, we're here in northern Saskatchewan combining corn today, and it was unheard of, a few years ago. So the products are getting closer, and better, and we're working out the kinks on making it work here. So definitely the acreage is going up, and the products are getting closer to working here consistently. So within our group, our breeding program is working in Western Canada to develop new products that will work here. So that's what we're trying to do, is get guys comfortable with seeing corn out in Western Canada.
Awesome, thank you very much.
Thank you.